Well, aimed at the low end of the market, Vodacom launched a smartphone for just 549 Rand. Arthur Goldstuck, MD of Worldwide Worx and Editor-in-Chief of Gadget, joins us now for more. Arthur, good to have you with us. There are lots of gadgets here that you have with you on the table, but maybe let's pick up on this one from Vodacom. I understand it's in direct competition with what MTN recently launched.
Where's the kicker?
Thank you. Yes. This is the kicker.
That's the kicker. Looks like my iPhone.
It looks like almost anyone's smartphone. It's a small screen though.
It's a bit smaller, yeah.
That's partly what makes it so cheap. But there's a massive competition underway between Vodacom and MTN to bring the cheapest smartphones to the market. Although they say it's not about competing, it's about trying to give their entry-level customers entry to the internet world and the world of data and apps.
Have you compared the stepper and the kicker?
I've been playing around with them. The stepper, this is the stepper from MTN. And that phone really was one of the ones that set the market alight, because it's a 499 Rand phone as opposed to the kicker at 549. The problem with the stepper though is that it's got MTN's own skin over the Android operating system, and the skin means it's their version of the operating system, and it's not a very user-friendly one, whereas the kicker has got almost a standard version of Android, so people will be able to get far more use out of the kicker. But MTN have now come up with a new version of the stepper, not on the market yet, but it's got a much bigger screen and it looks like far more of an Android kind of
I must tell you something, after
phone.
feeling the original kicker in my hand, it was a lot bulkier than Vodacom's one, and this one actually seems like it's a better option in the long run.
If they can bring it to the market at the same price, and the pricing hasn't been confirmed yet, then it's certainly going to give Vodacom a run for its money.
From the network provider's perspective, the more people they can get into the market in smartphones, the more data they're going to sell, so perhaps they'd subsidize it?
There's no question about it. The MTN stepper was heavily subsidized, as was this phone. This is the Huawei Ascend Y220. That came onto market at the end of last year at 449 Rand. So the cheapest smartphone on the market from a name brand. It cleaned up the market as well between that and the stepper, and they sold hundreds of thousands between the two, but both were subsidized. That's why the kicker from Vodacom is in fact a more realistic price at 549. That's more sustainable. Those other low-cost smartphones were not sustainable at the time.
But just from a broader perspective, clearly these are smartphones, and you've said that, so it gives access to the internet. It gives people who previously couldn't afford an iPhone or a Galaxy that opportunity. How's it going to change the environment that you know so much about?
One of the big changes that's going to have to come to the market is a relook at data costs from the networks, because every one of those phones uses data in the background. The MTN stepper especially heavily, and because of the MTN skin over the operating system, you have less control of how you use that data. So in effect, it's sucking up data in the background without the user even knowing it, and the cost of that data is coming off their airtime. So it's ad hoc data at the top price in the market. On MTN it's 1 Rand a meg, Vodacom 2 Rand a meg. When you unintentionally using data at that kind of cost, it's going to result in a backlash.
That's very high, Arthur.
There's no question.
1 Rand a meg. We used to buy it at 1 cent a meg. How can they charge
Well,
so
if
much?
you buy a big enough bundle, you can get it at 1 cent a meg. But the entry-level market that we're talking about here cannot afford bundles. So we're campaigning heavily for the networks to bring down that ceiling price of data.
It's like Woolies selling biltong at 1,000 Rand a kilogram if you buy the little bits.
Besides, it's the same idea. If you buy in bulk, you get it a lot cheaper. But who can afford to buy it in bulk at that segment of the market?
Exactly. But just on that, isn't MTN maybe best positioned to take advantage of this, given the fact that it's one of the biggest telcos on the continent, versus Vodacom, which is more focused on SA?
At this stage, it's a market-by-market issue, and Vodacom is a lot bigger in South Africa. So Vodacom, also being part of Vodafone globally, is able to commission their own design of phones, whereas MTN is relying on something called a reference design. That's a phone that's been developed by the chip makers like Qualcomm or Intel, who put out the blueprints, the template you could say for the phone, and then someone like MTN or a local retail outlet, and you will be seeing that soon as well, simply takes one of these reference designs, sends it to a factory in China, and has it built with their brand on top of it.
So it could be Mr. Price?
Exactly, it could well be Mr. Price. But the Vodacom phones are in fact commissioned by Vodafone, and they put it out to tender. So Alcatel in fact manufactures these cheap Vodacom phones.
You've got such wonderful insights, but when one has a look from a broader perspective into the African continent, surely there's just such a huge pent-up demand for smartphones that it's going to be a bull factor for both Vodacom and MTN. The market's just so big.
It's a massive market. At this stage, the winners are the manufacturers that get into those markets. So Samsung, for example, is growing very rapidly in all the markets where smartphone growth is at the highest. Nokia still has a chance there, but they've already announced, or Microsoft has announced, they're likely to pull out of the feature phone market, which is where Nokia still dominates the continent. So they have to come into that market with Windows phones, which at this stage are a lot more expensive.
Is this just the tip of the iceberg? Are tablets coming up next?
This is the beginning, but it's the beginning of a smartphone revolution. The tablet revolution is still a little way away. They're a little too expensive, still too demanding, and the big issue in Africa is charging and battery life. So you've got to produce devices that have got a long battery life that don't have to be charged every day. And at this stage, we don't really have that luxury in the smartphone or the tablet market.
Arthur, why should I trade in my iPhone for a kicker, say?
You're not going to, because you are at the top end of the market. Same with the people who use, for example, the Samsung Galaxy S4 or S5 or the Sony Xperia Z1 or Z2, for example. They are not in the market for these devices. They are buying phones on contract, where they're paying between 300 and 500 Rand a month on their contract. These are people who can only afford that once every couple of years. So for the guy who's using a feature phone at the moment, for anyone using a feature phone that wants to upgrade to a smartphone, these are the ideal devices.
Alex, the guy who's buying in bulk, that's why. But tell us about your juice bottle that's on the table. What's that
I brought this along because it's symbolic of the great need that's emerging in the smartphone market. Most smartphones, most of the high-end smartphones, your iPhone, for example, does not last a full working day. So what you need is a portable charger. And we're going to see these proliferate across Africa. This is a nice gimmicky one from a company called Momax, which is shaped like a juice bottle. But this will charge two high-end smartphones off one charge of this device. What we're going to see is more and more smaller devices of this kind that will charge one of these low-end smartphones, say, after a working day when you're still on your way home and the phone is dying, and that's when you especially need the functionality of that smartphone. So people are going to be carrying two devices, one a smartphone and one a charger. Exactly.
A juice box. Thanks, man.
Indeed. Arthur, thank you so much
for your time today. Are you
going to
get one? You said I'm not allowed to get one, so are you?
I didn't say, the smart kicker.
You said I can't trade in my iPhone because it's...
Because you buy in bulk.
I buy in bulk.
Huh, Alex?
I've switched,
that's
by the way.
Said.
I've gone to MTN and my phone rings again. It's been amazing. I actually get phone calls now.
No swipe there at South Sea. But nonetheless, thank you so much.
You said it, good.
Oh, well. People who watch the show on a regular basis know what we're talking about. But thanks to Arthur Goldstuck, MD of Worldwide Worx. Maybe we should have asked you which is the best network, but we'll get you back for that one. And he's the editor-in-chief of Gadget.